to our world. Elvis in Vegas documentary. Shout out to Carol for requesting this one. Smash that like button. Let's run the likes up and let's get straight to it.
From Tennessee, you know. What do we know about Vegas, you know? The autumn leaves drift by my window. They were 50s and 60-year-old people. They were eating their $100 steaks, you know, it was the main room, and drinking their $50 drinks and all that stuff. And they didn't want to hear that racket we were making, you know. So I guess it turned them off.
Elvis bombed. It was his first big setback.
It didn't happen for him in the 50s in Vegas because they were not ready for rock and roll. You know, it was Liberace was playing there, and Elvis has pictures with Liberace because he was the big one then in Vegas.
Elvis's manager learned plenty from this first false step. Just 1 year earlier, he'd helped create the world's first rock and roll star with a mixture of inspiration and guile. He knew the importance of packaging.
The Colonel was good at reinventing Elvis. I don't care what people say about him. A lot of people didn't like the old man, but he was good at what he was doing. He took care of all the business, and he didn't take any prisoners. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, take it or leave it. And they had to take it because he had the power in Elvis. The Colonel was shrewd.
Parker had learned his trade in the East Coast fairgrounds, among the salesmen, card sharps, and tricksters.
The Colonel learned to read people on the carnival. You have a split second, that's all. You don't have time to learn to know a person when you're on a carny. And he was able to gauge people just within a few minutes of being around them.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time.
The Colonel beamed his formidable marketing skills at a teenage audience who would later follow the mature Elvis into Vegas. But first, to take his 23-year-old rock and roll star into every suburb and city across America, Colonel turned to the power of Hollywood. The Colonel played different studios against one another, with the result that the 31 films Elvis made over the next decade would be worth many millions to both of them. Elvis's early Hollywood movies broke box office records. Colonel was wisely approving scripts that cashed in on Elvis's rebellious rock and roll image.
The king starts to do it, it's his blood is done. He holds his skin tall like a Tommy gun. He starts to growl down in his throat. He bends a string and that's all she wrote. You know he's gone, gone, gone.
First, the movies were great. They were fun. Elvis looked forward to them.
Spider-Man played it in a saxophone.
Jailhouse Rock was a really good rock and roll movie. Elvis had an edge to himself, tough guy type situation in a picture.
Section was a purple gang like rock. Everybody likes rock. Everybody knows rock.
You know, at first I didn't realize how good he was. And as we came to spend more time working with him, we realized that he had tremendous range, not just in terms of the octaves, but in terms of the emotional quality. He was a beautiful singer.
Elvis's budding film career was put on hold by his call-up for military service in Germany. He left Colonel to develop his latest master plan, to create Elvis the Hollywood Pinup. Away in Germany, Elvis absorbed a range of music, from opera to blues. teenage Priscilla, his bride-to-be.
Hold me close, hold me tight, make me thrill with delight.
After he returned from Germany in 1960, they settled into Graceland and a home in Palm Springs.
I want you, I need you, I love you.
They eventually married in Las Vegas in a secretly arranged ceremony at the Aladdin Hotel.
Every time that you're near, all my cares disappear.
Of course, the Colonel invited the world's press to record this intimate event.
I need you, I want you.
To remold him as a romantic lead, not just for the tabloids, but up on the movie screen, Colonel had already signed Elvis for a string of money-spinning Hollywood roles that lasted throughout the 60s.
Elvis wanted to make, better movies, but the Colonel kept telling him, Elvis, we're getting $1 million up front, we're getting 50% of the picture, and we're getting star billing, and we got an album from the picture. He said, so we're doing pretty doggone good.
Elvis wanted to be an actor. He wanted to do some serious movies. He wanted to do some comedies. But he didn't want to do musicals every time. But that's what they did. Elvis riding a horse or singing to a cow, something like that. So that eventually got to Elvis.
If you're thinking about buying solar panels, don't. The U.S. government will literally buy them for you if you take 60 seconds.
You take the rebel and you make him the boy next door. And Elvis was not the boy next door. I think Elvis finally had a choice to creatively walk around with a chip on his shoulder and be angry all the time, or just try to go along with the program as best he could.
In my big shack, baby, we'll be alone. I'll make you feel at home in my little big shack.
I said, Colonel, the songs are not that great. I said, the songs are weak songs. He said, what do we care? He said, George, he said, tell you what, you give me $1 million, he said, and you can pick the songs, we don't care. I said, but Colonel, what about the big picture down the road? He said, we worry about that later.
And when songwriters Lieber and Stoller tried to intercede with better material for Elvis, they got short shrift.
The Colonel says, if you ever dare try to interfere in the career of Elvis Presley, you will never work again in Hollywood, New York, or anywhere else in the world. That was the response. And it was, I guess, among other things, shortly after that we just stopped writing for Elvis.
But Hollywood offered some compensation for Elvis and his entourage.
I love a life.
Being with Elvis anywhere where he's making a picture is really great because everybody comes around. It's very exciting. And the scenery wasn't too bad either. By that I mean the young ladies who were out to watch Elvis. And it was my job to go invite them back to the hotel for a party after shooting that day if Elvis wanted to have a party. It was probably the best you could ever get. Being with Elvis Presley, shooting a movie, you couldn't beat it.
I don't think I've before or ever since ever seen that much things around. When I say things, it's not only women, but there's cars and money, and it's almost like you could walk on water. It was amazing. It was you couldn't do anything wrong.
Elvis was a woman's man. He always had women around. But Elvis had that duality in that perspective too, is that he wanted someone at home like Priscilla, and then he wanted to be on the road, and he wanted to have the flexibility and the access to women, and that was just who he was.
But Elvis needed more than a little help from friends to see him through a grueling routine of all-night parties and the tedium of fulfilling the Colonel's demands for 29 movies in just 7 years.
Elvis was an insomniac. And when he was in the Army, he had to be up every day. He had to be physically ready to go. And this created a problem. I think that's where it started. It was easier if he had something to go to sleep at night. But then he had to have something to wake up.
Come Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane.
His hectic life in Hollywood made it hard for Elvis to settle into family holidays, however idyllic they appeared, with adoring wife and newborn child. To counter Elvis's restlessness and need for a new challenge, Colonel came up with an old-fashioned scheme for the Christmas of '68.
Colonel Parker sat down with Elvis one day. He said, Elvis, you want to do a Christmas special? He said, the good thing about a Christmas special, we do one, and they'll play it every year at Christmas time. See what I'm saying? Colonel was the business guy.
The 33-year-old Elvis had never yet contradicted his manager. But all that changed when he heard the Colonel planned to televise him crooning family Christmas songs. And he got support from the show's director to reveal more of himself.
I think at the time that I met with Elvis regarding his career, he was really sort of frightened and scared stiff of failing. And I think this whole idea of pushing him into television was real scary to him because he thought, you know, as he said to me, I'd been away from an audience in years, and I've just been making all these movies.
You're looking for trouble? You came to the right place. Looking for trouble? Just look right in my face. I was born standing up and talking back.
This sultry, leather-clad image was not at all what the Colonel had in mind.
I actually reacted to the full 1968 comeback show. I will put my reaction to it in the description if you guys want to go and check that out.
And the Colonel said, Bender, it's been called to my attention that we don't have any Christmas songs in the show. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, Elvis wants Christmas songs in the show. Isn't that right, Elvis? And Elvis would stand next to me and he wouldn't move a muscle. He would sort of stand to me like a child would stand being reprimanded by the teacher or parents. He'd sort of mumble, that's right, Colonel. And then as we're walking down the hall, Elvis would sort of jam me in the ribs and said, you know, screw him, you know, and we'd go right on with whatever we had planned, ignoring him, basically. But he never confronted the Colonel and said what he felt. The beauty of it was the first time anybody had ever seen a real Elvis Presley. And I kept all that stuff in the program. I mean, all the making fun of himself, the movies he had made, you know, where he kept quivering his lip.
I got news for you, baby. I did 29 pictures like that.
But up to the moment the show aired on network TV, Elvis was uncertain whether Binder or the Colonel was right.
We watched it air that night. Nothing was said. You know, he watched it so intensely, as if he'd never seen it before. You know, leg was shaken, you know, had bottled water, drinking constantly. And a smile would go on his face a little bit, you know, and then the phone would ring. He felt like, my God, I did it. You know, this is going to be a whole new Elvis again.
The show became NBC's highest-rated program of the year.
I think the '68 special was important to Elvis because, first of all, it proved to him that, again, it wasn't publicity that made him the superstar that he became, but it was really because of his talent. So he believed in himself again.
Well, since my baby loved me, well, I found a new place to dwell. Well, it's down at the end of Lonely Street, that heartbreaking trail. I'll be so lonely, baby. I'll be so lonely. I'll be so lonely.
Elvis had triumphed on television, but during the years he had been cocooned by the Colonel in Hollywood, the music world around them had been turned on its head. Following the British invasion, the group sound was in, and solo artists were mostly out.
Elvis thought maybe, you know, the days of the solo performer were over. And he said that I was the only one, you know, at that time that was doing it. So he was giving him confidence to to sing live again. So he came to Vegas in '68 to watch me work. So seeing me, and hearing me sing live and moving, with the body movements, which were similar to what Elvis had done, and was still doing. So he wanted to see it and hear it firsthand in Vegas.
Although it's always crowded, you still can find some room for broken.
Elvis was ready for the next step, playing to a live audience, something he hadn't done for almost 8 years. Arriving in Las Vegas, he was still unsure, recalling his first big failure there in '56.
So he was really concerned if they're still going to accept him here. And Colonel said, Elvis, he says, don't worry about it. You'll be accepted. And I'll put it this way. You'll know, everybody in this town that comes to this town will know you're playing here.
This is controversial, but salt is 3 times stronger than the blue pill and can make any man rock hard.
Will know you're playing here.
Colonel announced to America that Elvis would be opening at the 2,000-seat theater in the nearly completed International Hotel. It was the first of a new generation of high-rise hotels that would transform the landscape and economy of that city. But as he didn't have a band, Elvis had to build a new style of show band that would win over a possibly skeptical Vegas audience.
I meet Elvis for the first time, really, up close and personal, and we just immediately had a great rapport. I got to see what the charisma that everybody talked about with him was all about. We started playing, and I just zeroed on him and just watched every little thing he did and tried to play with every little move. It's like playing for a stripper. In burlesque, obviously the drummer's role is to accent the movements of the dancer. In a way, what Elvis did was a dance too. All of his movements were very much emphasized. That was very much the way he expressed himself musically. He stood right in front of me most of the time, so he could not only hear what the drums were doing, but he could also feel it. So it was like a two-way communication in that sense.
Never lost eye contact with him because he was so aware of what's going on in his audience and had total control of the stage that there was always this eye contact, and we watched every move he made.
Elvis watched everybody on stage. He knew what each one of us was doing, and he would call out your name. You'd be making a little whisper, and he'd go, Myrna, don't do that, and you go like, how did he see me? It's like he had eyes in the back of his head. He could be facing in a different direction, and he could pick up on whatever you were doing.
He was the most focused guy I've ever worked with. He knew every entrance of every singer, every group, every oboe entrance, every violin entrance, and if anybody slipped up, he knew it.
The horns are answering it there. If you need a friend, it's right on top of friend. They're right on top of friend. They come in. Need a friend. If you need.
We learned probably 50 songs before we even opened, and many of them were sung one time after many hours of rehearsal on that one song, and he would just decide, hey, I don't like that song, so we never did the song again.
While the music was being shaped, So were the designs for the jumpsuits that would become the most visible symbol of the reinvention of Elvis Presley, Vegas style.
Elvis had his own perfect body concerning a stage suit. The way he was built made a perfect V. He went from wide shoulders down to perfect hips, which you can't ask for more than that when you're trying to do a sexy outfit for a stage presentation for a gentleman. The way he used it, the way it became part of his presentation, lighting, staging, backup singers, and so on, it became as integral a part.
The International Hotel was gearing up for the big event.
Kill that blower. Or blow that killer, whatever.
During 24 days of rehearsals, Elvis surrounded himself with the Memphis Mafia, a protective ring of hometown jokers, courtiers to keep the king amused.
James, wait a minute, man. Wait a minute. They don't tell you when to start.
Like the disciples. Of course, I'm not comparing Elvis to Jesus, but it was the same sort of overall premise. You know, we were the group around him.
We lived in our own little world that was pretty special, pretty cool. And Vegas liked us, and we liked Vegas.
In the morning, when through a sleepy haze,
The Colonel kept well away from their high-spirited jinx and devoted himself to a blitz of publicity the likes of which Vegas had never seen. Audiences who had flocked to Elvis in the 1950s would be here to see a teen idol reinvented.
Colonel Tom Parker awakened the whole town to the fact that Elvis Presley is going to be here. Colonel's an old carny, and he used a lot of the carny tricks. Colonel even put billboards out in the neighborhoods. He said, I want the employees who work at the hotels to know that Elvis is here. He said, I even want the gophers out in the desert to know that Elvis is here.
This is the reason why I've canceled my internet subscription.
What if I told you that there's no such thing as no...
Though Presley was impatient to open the new theater, the Colonel knew better.
Don't tell me not to live, just sit and
He encouraged Barbara Streisand to open it and iron out the technical glitches so that everything was right for Elvis's wildly anticipated, star-studded opening night.
I know he hasn't been on the stage in 10 years and everybody's waiting to see it. It's like a championship fight, but I know he's going to be the winner.
True to his name, the Colonel had planned it all with military precision, employing a stand-up comedian to encourage the 2,000-strong audience to spend a small fortune on Blue Nun with baked lobster tails while waiting for Elvis.
The Vegas stage, you had a dinner show. Then the comic would come out, and then the star. And the comic got the people that were eating. And then by the time Elvis or the star came out, they were finished eating, and they were ready for them. We had to go through the plates and all that stuff, like the noise and the people. And that's what was tough about being an opening act, especially for an Elvis Presley. And I walked off, and Elvis was standing in the wings. He was white as a ghost. And I looked at him, I said, Elvis, and I shook his hand. I said, Elvis, they're great. They're waiting for you out there. And his hand was wet and clammy. He was nervous, too.
2,000 seats scared him tremendously. It was huge. I mean, would he be able to fill it? What happens then? There were a lot of questions that he had, a lot of questions that he, wasn't sure whether or not he was going to be able to pull this off.
His old hit from the 50s, Hound Dog, was given a whole new suit of clothes.
Elvis was an absolute master on stage. He was a perfectionist. Ultimately, what he wanted was the best possible product. He wanted the fans to hear what he knew he was capable of delivering.
Why can't you see what you're doing to me? When you don't believe a word I'm saying. We can't go on together with suspicious minds. And we can't.
For many, Suspicious Minds defined the mature Vegas Presley. And his acclaimed live shows were accompanied by another triumph. His first #1 hit for 7 years, in its slower version, recorded at the American Sound Studio in his hometown, Memphis.
I had heard that he had booked the studio for 2 weeks, came up with about 40 songs. And so I was just trying to capture that one song, and every time I'd go in the studio, my publisher would say, yeah, Elvis is coming. I said, yeah, I know.
Throughout the 60s, Colonel had insisted that all new songs belonged to the publishing company part owned by Colonel and Elvis.
They didn't want anybody having anything to do with Presley making choices about songs. They wanted that to be a fait accompli, that Presley only does songs published by Hill and Range.
The Colonel was looking after the Golden Goose and didn't want anybody to get close enough, especially close enough to give Elvis a new song that they didn't have the publishing rights locked up on.
But unlike the movie years, when Elvis had to accept mediocre songs, he now had the self-confidence to insist he got only the best and to ignore the Colonel's henchmen. Great hits like Kentucky Rain and In the Ghetto established Elvis as an adult artist in that rundown studio on the wrong side of the tracks.
On a cold and gray Chicago morning, a poor little baby child is born in the ghetto.
These offered a new realism, far removed from the blander repertoire of Hill and Range, as did Suspicious Minds.
The song I was trying to write and capture, I knew at the time it had to be a mature rock song that would put him back and regain his title in rock and roll.
We're caught in a trap. I can't walk because I love it too much, baby. Why can't you see, what you're doing to me? When you don't believe a word I say.
On stage in Vegas, Elvis had reached his pinnacle as a live performer.
I can't walk because I love you too much.
Drinking warm water before bed balances blood sugar levels and reverses type 2. Thousands of people are apparently regaining.
Elvis did like to work in Vegas. He liked the lights were great, the sound was great, the room was great. Everything was under control. He didn't have to travel. Just came down from his suite, right into the showroom, boom.
Colonel moved fast to cash in on Elvis's feel-good factor. An agreement was scribbled on a tablecloth in the hotel coffee shop. It would tie Elvis to 2 shows a night, 4 weeks at a time, at $100,000 a week. And it would run for a full 5 years. Colonel was repeating the tactic that had gone so wrong in Hollywood. He was tying Elvis to a long-term contract that would ultimately threaten his career. But Colonel knew exactly how to get what he wanted.
Colonel played a part. He played the part of an uneducated Southern person who really didn't know the score, and he loved doing that because that caught everyone off guard. He never made notes. He said, don't write it down, remember it. He had an unbelievable mind.
Well, since my baby left me, well, I found a new place to dwell.
And the 5-year agreement suited the Colonel in more ways than one. He had become an increasingly big spender in the hotel's casino, and now negotiated some secret and preferential terms for himself.
The Colonel was sharp. He was getting a lot of perks for himself by Elvis playing Vegas. That was like he had all of his suites were taken care of. He had almost a full floor for his assistants to work out of. He could do all of his business there. He got
extra benefits as far as all the food, and we all thought, it was never proven, but everybody who knew what time it was had a feeling that the Colonel was, when he would lose all that money in the casino, he had a deal. I think it was probably about 50 cents on the dollar. If he lost $1 million, he only had to come up with 500,000.
Our manager, Colonel Tom Parker, where is he? Is the Colonel around anywhere? Oh, he's out playing roulette. Don't kid me. I know what he's doing.
Actually, it wasn't too bad because the Colonel was kind of a draw in the casino. He put on a show while he was playing roulette. He'd make everybody crowd around, they want to see him, and he'd holler and play and have fun and all that jazz. But I think there were some extra concessions that Elvis didn't know about that the Colonel was getting out of playing in Vegas.
Whatever the intricacies of Colonel's deal, its effect was to revitalize the whole city. Elvis attracted a massive new influx to this oasis of gambling and entertainment in the Nevada desert. And he brought them in from all over the world.
What has this trip meant to you?
Chance to see America plus a chance to see Elvis.
Which is more important?
Elvis. He's the king.
I think that inasmuch as there was some sort of a symbiosis in the relationship vis-a-vis Elvis in Las Vegas, there was also a symbiosis in that relationship between the Colonel and Elvis. And it may be true that the Colonel benefited economically, monetarily from a number of the deals that were cut, but so did Elvis.
Well, that's all right, Mama. That's all right with you. That's all right, Mama. Just any way you do it, that's all right.
Elvis was of prime importance to the hotel. He was the first entertainer to make a profit in the showroom. Before that time, the hotels always assumed that they would lose money on the shows, but make it up in the casino. But Elvis drew big players, and the hotel was thrilled because these people had money. The women were thrilled. They went to 2 shows a night, and the men were in the casino undisturbed. Everyone was happy. When Elvis was in town, everything lit up.
There were girls all over the hotel. They would come up to you and ask you, can you get me up to Elvis's room? There was hundreds of girls all over the hotel. Well, then you won't be bothered with me hanging around your...
Elvis did a lot for the hotel and did a lot for this town because at the time, he was the most popular entertainer. Let's give him a nickname, white boy, but with a brother on the inside. Because he was very generous.
He will generate such a tremendous business for the whole town. It was incredible, incredible.
The clothes he had, the capes with the rhinestones on them, they was real heavy. You couldn't pick them up by yourself. It'd take 2 or 3 people to pick them up. They was just that heavy.
Now, if you let it lay in a box, it weighs 25, 28 pounds, 30 pounds. So whenever I did Elvis's outfits, I always tried to distribute everything to his chest area, his shoulder area.
The jumpsuits, like his act, were getting heavier and more flamboyant.
One of the things that I had noticed from watching him was that he was enjoying his outfits, and the audience started enjoying them, and he started playing games of how to present them, and so on. It became part of the whole act.
Mirroring the showbiz extravagance of Las Vegas, Elvis's karate moves became a trademark of his act in the early 70s.
What do you do for relaxation? You take your face.
Karate. If you can relax doing this, I don't know.
Karate became a way of communication for Elvis with people that on some levels that he could not communicate directly with people in other areas. They could share this love of karate, this love of the physicality, this love of the control of emotions and the intellectual power that was associated with that. And he did transform that into a stage performance. And he largely did that because of Las Vegas. I think that's really where he began to hone his ability to take an audience in the palm of his hand. And he did that in Las Vegas, night after night. And and he learned that showmanship, and that's where he first started wearing the jewels and the jumpsuits and putting on that big, powerful show with 30-piece orchestra.
If you're turning 65 or beyond, you're going to want to watch this. There are a lot of people today that are Medicare eligible.
Thank you. Here in Las Vegas, we stay at the International Hotel. We had a beautiful, beautiful suite on the top floor, the 30th floor, the only suite up there. It overlooked all the city, but ours was completely closed off. It was about over 10,000 square feet. We had 4 bedrooms up there, a kitchen, big dining room, beautiful area with TV, and it was gorgeous. It was red and all wild, beautiful colors, and we had a great time with. We had all our parties were up there. We had a piano up there. We even had a slot machine up there for us guys. They set it up there because Elvis couldn't be in the casino. We invited a lot of beautiful ladies up there and a lot of other celebrities that came to see the show. We invited them up after for a party, and a lot of singing up there.
Or just open mine eyes that I may see.
We'd be up all night, and he'd bring the vocal group up with the electric piano, and we'd be singing there all night, gospel music. So he did live by night, but then again, so did I, and still do, actually. But Elvis liked his own world.
It was great. We'd be there till 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. The sun was coming up. So, okay, guys, time to go to bed. Because we were like vampires. It was a lot of fun. Every night was a party. Every night.
Between these months of nocturnal hibernation, the king was trapped on a treadmill of 150 shows a year, escaping the increasing hysteria of the crowds and shielded from reality by his Memphis Mafia.
We were out playing medium-sized markets all over the U.S. over and over and over again. I just don't think that was wise planning from an artistic standpoint. With all the Colonel's strength, I don't think he really understood the artistic temperament that Elvis did have underneath all the other facets of his personality.
Some of the guys, they were concerned about Elvis's health and well-being. When I would ask the Colonel, you need to take Elvis to Europe. They're crying for him in England. He would sell out, crazy like. And he said, George, the venues are not big enough over there. So that was the cockamamie reason he gave everybody. The other reason came out, and it came out in the later years, was that Colonel Parker was not an American citizen.
Unknown to Elvis, his manager's real name wasn't Parker, nor was he a colonel. He was Dries van Kalk, an illegal immigrant from Holland, who therefore couldn't leave America.
There's so many places that I haven't been yet. I'd like to go to Europe. I'd like to go to Japan and all those places. I've never been out of this country except in the service. Yeah, I'd love to go there.
I think Elvis was becoming a little bit bored because doing the shows in Vegas, going on the road, same cities, crisscrossing America, because Colonel, he didn't want Elvis to get off where he didn't have control of him.
Are you lonesome?
Elvis and his entourage staved off boredom with a flotilla of one-night stands.
We're a bunch of bad boys.
And I know I'm not the only one who thinks this. I honestly wish Elvis cut him off and told him, you're not my manager anymore. In like the late 60s. If not the late 60s, the early 60s, maybe late 50s. I really wish he told him, you are not my manager anymore, because that's... he wasn't able to go nowhere but Hawaii. And that's sad, man. It's really sad. Do you know how many people he would have pulled if he was able to do a concert in England? Do you know how many people would be there? Do you know how many people would be at his concert in the United Kingdom? If he was able to do a show in the United Kingdom? Like, bro. I mean, don't get me wrong. People knew who Elvis was, right? But those different countries wasn't able to see Elvis live unless they watched it on TV. But none of those countries, none of the outside countries were able to see Elvis live. And that honestly sucks. And it was all because of one person. And it's all because of one combined person that we all do not like. I don't.
For all those years while we were all married. Our wives were married, we were single.
The Vegas bachelors were living high, but their marriages were heading for the rocks.
Temptation sometimes overrides loyalty to a spouse. Elvis probably should never have married. He belonged to women, not woman. But there's no doubt in my mind that he loved Priscilla very, very much, and she adored him.
But he traveled a lot now. I had other needs. I was with my daughter every day, and, you know, I grew apart. I couldn't live like that anymore. There were things that I wasn't going to put up with one-night stands. Even though I knew I didn't say a lot.
Why is TXU Energy Season Pass one of our most popular plans? Because you automatically save 50% on energy charge.
Even though I knew I didn't say a lot.
When Priscilla finally realized that she had to have her own life, and she told Elvis about it in Vegas, he was devastated. He was furious. One of the times where we all went through hell.
That definitely hurt him very much. He couldn't believe his wife was divorcing him, that she was going to be on her own with his daughter. And that bothered him tremendously. It was tough, but he kept all that inside himself.
To give some structure to these bottled up emotions and the chaos of his life, Elvis had been searching for control mechanisms. Guns and badges offered one answer. In 1970, he'd gone to Washington to collect a federal agent's badge from a bewildered President Nixon. It would allow Elvis to carry a gun anywhere he desired.
Elvis loved guns. The first time that I actually saw the gun with Elvis is that he came into my dressing room backstage, and he was singing to me in the shower. I was washing my hair and I heard Elvis Presley's voice, and I thought, I'm going nuts, I can hear Elvis in the shower. But then when I opened my eyes, he was actually over the shower door singing this song to me. When I came out of the shower and he left, I noticed that he used the toilet, because he has left his gun on the back of the toilet. You know, it was a silver-plated Colt 45.
One night up here at the Las Vegas Hilton at the 30th floor, Robert Goulet came on television, and I really don't know what it was about Robert Goulet. I don't think it was him, but maybe it's just Elvis was in a bad mood, but he came on television and Elvis was sitting there.
I am what I am. I am my own special creation.
And he picked up a 45 and pulled around into it and shot the television.
Elvis had a fascination for law enforcement, guns, badges, authority, power. You know, it was like a carryover from the time he was a little boy, maybe, and played cops and robbers.
Not long after separating from Priscilla, Elvis met the former Miss Tennessee, who would spend the next 4 years with him, on and off.
He needed a lot of attention. He needed a lot of care, physically and emotionally. And he was, you know, at times he was like my baby. At other times he was like my brother. At other times he was my lover. And sometimes he was my friend. He would be watching television and say, "Honey, would you turn it up, please?" Okay, I guess your legs are broken. He had a raucous, irreverent sense of humor. You know, he loved his movies and Monty Python. We were both huge fans of Monty Python.
God, if they don't stop, I'll kill myself. I swear I will. All right, that's it.
His sense of humor and fun had not deserted him, nor had his generosity, as he bought gifts of cars and houses for friends and strangers alike.
Elvis was so incredibly generous that, we called him everything from crazy to Santa Claus to a fallen angel. I mean, he was astonishingly generous. He could come in on a Tuesday and say, honey, look what I found for you. And it would be, a 5-carat blue diamond. Or, what is this for? Well, it's Tuesday, here. It's beautiful and you're beautiful and you should have it. So he was really like having a Prince Charming in your life.
He was always a big kid. He always bought things for people and friends and bought whatever he wanted. He bought it for himself because he could never do that when he was a kid, so he made up for it on his own later on.
These mystery boxes are on super clearance right now. They're basically giving them away for free. All you have to do is pay for shipping.
Elvis's childhood needs, his love of his mother, memories of his stillborn brother, haunted his downtime.
The very first night that I was with Elvis, he said to me, if we had the money, I would have been born at home. Maybe my twin brother would have been born alive and not dead. We couldn't afford doctors. So Elvis psychologically, from very young, believed in doctors.
Pain, anxiety, pain, fatigue, pain.
There used to be a commercial on television that goes, better living through chemistry. And Elvis used to say, better living through chemistry.
Depression, tension, anxiety, fatigue.
He basically was not a drugger, but some irresponsible doctor introduced him to high pain medication, and that was the downfall physically.
The effects of Elvis's increasing dependence on medication became more visible in Vegas, at the hotel now renamed the Hilton. Colonel Parker was becoming anxious about the rambling monologues as Elvis battled his demons on stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, this chain I have around my neck here was given to me last night by the hotel, the Hilton Hotel.
The night that Elvis was on stage and made very derogatory remarks about the Hilton Hotel officials, I was in the audience sitting next to Colonel in a booth.
And there's a guy here that works in an Italian restaurant. His name is Mario. And these people are getting ready to fire him as soon as I leave. And I don't want him to go. I think he needs a job. And I think the Hiltons are bigger than that. No.
When Elvis started, Colonel turned to me and said, I wish I could just disappear under this table. I've never been so embarrassed in my life.
The next song is dedicated to the hierarchy, the staff of the Hilton Hotel. I'm the king of the jungle, they call me Tiger Man. I'm the king of the jungle, they call me Tiger Man.
Well, when he comes off stage, Colonel Parker, he attacks Elvis with words and says, Elvis, they pay us to perform here. Elvis, is not our thing to tell them how to handle their business and their people, and they don't tell us how to handle our business. Well, they get into a tremendous argument, an argument to where the fact Elvis throws out the word, you're fired then.
He quit, Elvis fired him. I mean, they had a terrible clash. I'm sure the whole hotel heard what was being said. And as a consequence, Colonel came downstairs. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and he said to me, come in the office, I have dictation. And he spent the next couple of hours dictating the terms under which he was leaving. I typed them.
Colonel presents the bill late that evening to Elvis, okay, I'm finished, I'm out of here, we're packing up, but you owe me it was like $1 million or $2 million. And it was Elvis's nature. He hated confrontations. He didn't like to get in arguments or heavy confrontations. And then number 2 was Elvis was loyal. So they sort of kissed and made up.
Okay, you want to try again? Sure.
Elvis's loyalty to the manager who had made him a star back in '56 led to a plague of problems, not just in Vegas, but in the recording studios where Presley searched for new hits, and you could hear it in the lyrics.
I see a change is coming to our lives. It's not the same as it used to be. And it's not too late to realize our mistake. We're just not right for each other.
Elvis was a brilliant producer in the studio, and he knew how he wanted his music presented, more so than anybody.
But sales were plummeting, and the reason was obvious to those around him. The best composers were once again kept at arm's length from Elvis's sessions. It was like the 60s with the Colonel all over again.
I see the men from the publishing company with a guy up against the wall saying, you know, you were hired here to play guitars, not to pitch songs, and if you ever pitch a song again, you will never do another Elvis Presley session.
And the Colonel interfered in even more obvious ways, cutting deep into Elvis's increasingly fragile self-confidence.
I think the Colonel had gone into the studio after certain things were mixed. And we know, like on the Madison Square Garden live album, he sped the tracks up. It sped up the track, sped up Elvis's voice, but he got one more song for publishing's sake. It made him sound like Mickey Mouse almost, you know, and the tempos were just freakily fast.
Did you know that a simple glass of water could be sabotaging your battle against type 2 diabetes? Pay attention. Blood glucose up to 100.
Freakily fast. So I think there was a lot of frustration there with him, and he didn't really know how to deal with that.
Colonel also messed with the mixes.
I heard Colonel talking to New York and RCA, saying, we can't even hear Elvis with all that background stuff. And you need to turn that stuff down. Now, I heard that with my own ears. I think the Colonel was saying that people are paying to hear Elvis Presley sing, and all the other stuff is getting in the way of that. The band and the singers and everything. When people fool with an artist's work, they wind up killing the artist. I lost my friend mainly because of creative disappointments. I think those caused the other problems.
Elvis's shows now fluctuated from the sublime to the chaotic.
Later on in his life, when he was having some problems with prescription medication, he could come out on stage and he could forget lyrics to a song. He could seem disoriented, and the audience was oblivious to it.
Well, I hear rumors flying around. I got sick in the hospital. In this day and time, you can't even get sick. You are strung out. Well, by God, I'll tell you something, friend. I have never been strung out in my life, except in music.
Living by night on the Hilton's 30th floor, Elvis became increasingly isolated and in need of help.
I think the first time I realized that Elvis was taking medication, I was in Las Vegas with him, and it was in the first couple of weeks that I was there. But I remember one night looking down at his nightstand, and I saw all these prescription bottles, and I said, "Are you sick? He said, "Why do you ask, honey?" I said, "Well, these are all prescription bottles." And he said, No, I had a little sore throat, or, I've got to keep my throat good for performing.
For many years, Elvis was in denial. No question about it. And he became dependent upon people to take care of things for him. He became dependent in many ways, just like he did with the medications that 5 different doctors who are not in touch with one another were giving him. And he became addicted to them.
I feel like a stranger, in my own hometown.
Elvis's health was declining, often in clinics and hotel bedrooms. And the
Colonel started to interfere.
Lo and behold, there's Colonel Parker, and I walked him to the door. He opens it up, and what I saw was Elvis's body being dunked into a bucket of ice water by the doctor. Elvis was like this, moaning, and the door closed. 60 seconds later, the door opened. The colonel walked out. He stood with me toe to toe, stared in my eyes and said, "Now you listen to me. The only thing that's important is that that man is on the stage tonight. You hear me? Nothing else matters. Nothing."
While Elvis struggled with his demons, so increasingly did the Colonel, throwing away huge sums of money in the Hilton Casino.
This is what Colonel said. When I'm playing, I forget everything except what I'm doing. I have no aches or pains. I have no stress over the business. I am focused on the gambling.
He played roulette and would put chips on every number. In a period of an hour and a half, he lost over $1.25 million. And Elvis believed at the end, toward the end, that the reason he was playing the hotels was trying to pay off the Colonel's debts.
Elvis had felt indebted to his manager for 20 years now. And the lyrics of
That's sad. He was playing in Vegas to pay off his manager's debt. That's sad as fuck, bro. For real.
"Walk a Mile in My Shoes" seemed to echo the low point their relationship had reached by 1976.
If I could be you, if you could be me, for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. If you could see you through my eyes instead of your ego. I believe it'd be surprised to see that you've been blind. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Yeah, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, just walk a mile in my shoes.
Elvis was becoming increasingly remote from the manager and the city he had once loved.
Here we're talking about Las Vegas and money, the very epitome of materialism. And here's Elvis Presley, upstairs, after a show, meditating, before a show, saying a prayer, reading spiritual books of depth and substance. The contrast was amazing, quite amazing.
He definitely believed that he was blessed by God. It wasn't just an accident. He felt that he had been picked out, you know. But he used to question it. Why me?
Sweet Spirit in this place, and I know that it's the Spirit.
I would sit in his dressing room when I'd go see him, and he'd be there fidgeting, waiting for his second show. He felt he should have stayed in the church and not become an entertainer.
Elvis would wear on almost every occasion 3 necklaces. He would wear the Christian crucifix, the cross. He would wear the Egyptian ankh, and he would wear a Jewish star. And he would tell me, he said, "I don't want to miss out on heaven on a technicality."
I see my light come shining from the west down to the east.
Elvis never returned to Las Vegas after the winter of '76. He would die in Graceland 6 months later, age 42.
I shall be released.
we could really say that Elvis and the Colonel revitalized Las Vegas. They brought in people from all over the world. And not only the international hotel benefited, but every hotel in Las Vegas.
I think you had this wonderful opportunity where the city really needed a pick-me-up. It needed somebody to come in and shake up the entertainment scene and make it cool again for name entertainers to appear in Las Vegas. So he brought that to the table, but Vegas brought to the table the opportunity for Elvis to showcase himself. So I think it was a marriage made in heaven.
After 837 shows, the Hilton's curtains finally closed on an exhausted Elvis who had given his all for the love and loyalty of his audience.
And it's still fuck Colonel Parker, whatever, even though he did he made so many moves for Elvis to do what he did, but it's still fuck him, because why, when you know that somebody's health is deteriorating, go and, oh, I don't care, he just better be up on that stage. And Elvis was sick as a dog. Sad. If it wasn't for him, Elvis would still be here today at the age of, what, 90 something? If I'm not mistaken. He would have been 90. He would have been 90 something. His birthday is January 8th, so he would have been 90 something. He still would have been here till this day. I can say that wholeheartedly. I believe he would be here till this day. If the Colonel did not work him how hard as he did, he would have never been on no pain, no sleeping drug, whatever drugs he was taking to be able to function. And he would still be here today. Anyway, you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed my reaction to this video. Again, shout out to Carol for requesting it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, smash that like button. Comment down below what the Elvis reactions you guys would like to see. And if you do not want to miss any other Elvis reactions I have on the way for you guys, smash that subscribe button and turn on that post notification bell so you can be notified when my next Elvis reaction goes live, and so you can be in the live premiere of the video. And while you're at it, go check out my very last video, my reaction to Elvis Return to Tupelo. That video will be over here, so go check that out. And I'll see you guys in my next Elvis reaction. I'm out. Big.